Hello and welcome back to the Fermented World Brewing channel. Drum roll please! Today we are brewing a mead with rose hips. Rose hips are a part of a rose plant that it bears the seeds. It's classed as the fruit. These have been frozen and thawed out. They're nice and squidgy. So these are going in this big bucket. We're doing a big batch of this today because I'm following somebody else's recipe, and he said at the end he thought that they still had a bit of life in them. So he went and made another mead with them. Another wine. His was a wine. I'll get to that in a second. And I'm not sure how the other wine went, but I've done it before where I've used fruits and then I've reused them. So I'm going to do a double batch of this to mimic the two that he got from his. I will put his name up. I will tag him in this because it was really helpful from his video. I'm doing things a little bit differently to what he does because obviously I'm brewing a mead. He made a wine, so he added brewing sugar or maybe table sugar, I'm not sure. And he split his before he froze them. Now, I couldn't be bothered to do that. I kind of picked them and then thought I should probably look at somebody's video as to find out what I'm doing with this. So we've got 1.5 kg of lovely rose hips picked from my allotment. If you're going around picking rose hips, right, be careful if they're in an area like a public park or something like that, because sometimes they can be sprayed with things to stop them getting pests on and things like that. So just make sure you're careful when you're sourcing what it is. So we are going to be adding approximately 2.5 liters of hot water to this. In fact, no, we're not. Well, we are, but we're not just yet. We're adding a little bit, even though I didn't mean to, so yeah, it won't matter. What we're going to do is we're going to mash these up a bit because we want the casings to be broken up. I'm leaving the seeds in. He said in his recipe he left the seeds in and it gave a lovely tannings, as they do have quite a lot of tannins in. So I'm going to follow his idea, his method, and see what we got. So I'm going to speed this bit up because it's a bit of effort and I want to get it done quicker. Okay, so it looks like a horror movie in there now. All mashed up, or the majority of them mashed up. Now, I will be using this paint mixer as a mixing tool, so that might very well help break up any that aren't broken up. But I would say at least 80% of them are mashed up. And now we're going to put in the rest of the water. So probably mash them up before you put the water in because they're all moving around and stuff now, but we're going to add the rest of the water now, which will create a massive bit of like a tea almost, a rose hip tea. I'm going to give that a little mix. Like so. Then we are going to add our honey. Now I'm using 4 of these, which is 2,800 grams. 2,880 to be exact. Because normally what I'd do in 1 gallon batch, I'd use 2 of these. They'd give you a gravity of about 1.100, which when fully fermented out would give you a 14 to 16% beverage when it goes dry. Now let's get this in. Can take a while, which is a bit tedious, but I'll pour 1 in and then we'll do the rest speeded up, just because. Always lick your lids, very important not to waste that tiny bit of glorious honey. Now this is just cheap honey. This is my go-to honey, blossom honey. Probably blended from many sources, but it tastes good. and it's cheap. If you want to add a bit more of a variety to your brews, brew with cheap honey and then add expensive honey after to give you whatever flavor you require, whether it be acacia, orange blossoms, pretty good. God, there's loads. You can even get locally sourced honey. Right, anyway, I'm gonna stop jabbering about honey and I'm gonna get these in sped up. Okay, so that's the honey in. Now we're going to add some more water. We're going to top this up to... So I'm going to do it to 10 litres because I think we're going to lose about a litre to the rose hips. So I've actually got some water here in bottles that I need to use up, and it's a little bit past its best, but it's still going to be good enough for what we're using it for. So in that goes up to the 10 litre mark. And as it goes in, it's oxygenating the water nicely as well. There we go. 10 litres. Now I was tempted to use my tilt hydrometer with this, which is a digital hydrometer. You don't need to check it. It does it all and it gives you a spreadsheet every time you load it. Interacts with your phone and just keeps you updated on what's going on. But I like to use it with beers instead, because beers have a certain point where it reaches and it won't ferment anymore, and that's when you know that it's actually ready, as where a mead will go until it reaches tolerance of the yeast. Right, so now comes the mix, which isn't plugged in for some bizarre reason, so I'm going to go plug it in. That'll be the kids who've unplugged that to probably plug in one of their chargers for something. Right, so sterilized paint mixer. Everything's sterilized. And we're going to give that a good mix. Making sure we mix in that honey. Looks like tomato soup, doesn't it? Chunky tomato soup. And as you can see from that video there is a lot floating around on the top which weren't bust open. So yes, if you can, mash them or break them open as you're processing them, and that'll mean that you get more of an extract than what I will. See, I've probably got, yeah, maybe 10%, 15 to 10% of it that's not really going to be fermented unless it breaks down during fermentation. Let's turn this up. Give it a blast. Reverse it. Reverse it again. Reverse again. And last time. You got to be careful like that because it is powerful and it does kick up. So just be careful that you don't want to just cover yourself in it. Right, actually, I'll leave that on for now because we've got a couple more additions to put in. So at this point, I'm going to add some pectolase. The other chap didn't, but with meads, I find that, I don't know why, but they just seem to be an absolute pain in the backside when it comes to clearing out. So 1 level teaspoon per gallon. You're supposed to dissolve this in a cup. I never do. can't be asked to wait and come back and then stir it. I'm a lazy brewer, to be fair. I just lob it all in a bucket and see what happens, as you can see by every other video that I've bloody done. So yeah, 1 level teaspoon per gallon. So that's a teaspoon there. Okay, so we've only got 1 teaspoon, not a problem. We'll just use that because that's all we've got. There's not a lot I can do other than that. We're going to get some yeast nutrients. This is because honey doesn't have any nutrients in itself. So if you were to brew this and not use nutrients, you'd have to wait quite a long time for it to actually taste nice. Normally about a year in the bottle is the time span. This is because without yeast nutrients, you starve the yeast. Now you can put natural nutrients in, like a bit of orange or things like that, something that's going to feed the yeast. But like I say, I don't like waiting, so I'm just going to be doing it with yeast nutrients. Usage 1 level teaspoon per gallon. Now I know that it was 1 level teaspoon, but I always check. We're doing a 2 gallon batch, so we'll get 2 of them in there. Lid back on. Need to buy some more pectolase. And that, and then we're going to mix them in. Now we need a hydrometer test. Now I have brought both hydrometers, but we should only need this one. So, hydrometer is a tool that allows us to measure the density of a brew and determine, after the 2 measurements before and after, how much alcohol is in it. My yeast should by rights allow me a tolerance of up to 18% if there's enough sugar for it to do so, but to be honest, it's a minefield really, because just recently I've been struggling to reach ABVs that it potentially should be able to have. For example, one brew that I did last, it was only showing that half of it had been fermented, which it should have done the bloody lot. Okay. We're at 90 on that, 1.090. That is good, I'm happy with that. It's a good start. So we will write all this down in the book after. It's good to remember your recipes. So if you create something really, really nice, you can recreate it again and also share it. I like to share what I'm doing. If it's my recipe like this is, like I've just bashed this together, borrowing somebody else's thing, but then making it my own as well. Like he even said on his video, recipes are just a guideline. You know, some people don't know how you like your wine or your mead. So it's all about just exploring, trying different things. This is the first time I've used rose hips. But yeah, hopefully, it's going to be nice. Either way, we're going to drink it. So I'm using 2 packs of yeast because, as I said, the aforementioned issues I've been having. It's probably overkill for a 10-litre batch to put 2 packets in, but as I've mentioned earlier, I've had trouble with getting the ABV. It always seems to reach a certain point and stop. So this is kind of like me experimenting with this to see whether it's actually the yeast that's causing the problem or whether there's just something else wrong. I've even gone as far as, when sterilizing, to double rinse everything out after sterilizing. So yeah, you know. Right, so now we're going to mix the yeast in and we're going to put a lid on it as well. It's got a lovely colour though. Okay, so that's everything in. It's all mixed up now. What we are going to do is, this is a little bit too warm. This is at 28 degrees. So I really shouldn't have pitched the yeast, although the yeast tolerance is able to be fermented at that thing. I didn't actually check. So always check that your bloody temperature's right, because I didn't. And the reason why I screwed up on this one is because I normally use tap water. And this time I've used the bottled water, which is at room temperature instead of cold that's coming out of the tap. I am going to chill it in a sink with some cold water, just ice cubes and stuff like that, just to bring it down to an acceptable temperature, a bit better. I don't know why, but I always like the airlock on the right hand side. Don't ask me why. Now this is actually a beer brewing vessel, but I've got to get a brew on for a mate. He has a batch of Viking's blood every couple of months, and he's came through one batch in about a month, so I've got to brew him another one. This time with a bit of a variation in, so I'm actually going to record that one. I didn't record the last one because it was just the same old Viking's blood that I've done a couple of times. There's no change, but this one's going to be a bit different, only ever so slightly. Going to be experimenting with adding something during the fermentation, so yeah, keep your eyes out for that, because that will be coming up. Hallelujah. And yeah, so going to get this in some water, let it cool down a bit, and write up what we've got inside it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon.